Hello and welcome to Whimsy Creek Art. Alright, today's video is episode 7 of our Basics of Paint Pour series. This is the string pull technique, and we will be doing 2 string pulls on this, 2 different pours on this video. So I just have cheap cotton yarn, just regular old cheap yarn. You can really anything, you can have ball chain, string, even some really thin ribbon, any sort of yarn. So I'm using the pale blue as my base, and I have mixed it up same consistency as all my paints. 1 part paint to 3 parts Floetrol. And so I'm just going to put a thin layer of that down as my base here. And I have just a cheap palette knife. I'm just spreading that about, but you can spread it around with anything. And so once I get the base all spread around, then I'm going to do some string pull. This first one is some string pull flowers. The second video is string pull feathers. You can do so many different things with string pulls. And I am going to do it on a wet base. You can do it on a dry base, but I do prefer a wet base. So I'm just spreading out my pale blue here, getting it all nice and spread out evenly. And you want the same consistency for all your paint as your base and the colors you're going to pull through. You want that all the same consistency. And I have a 10 by 10 inch canvas here, so I've got about a 12 to 14 inch piece of yarn. And then I just have out to the left here a piece of plastic sheeting here, and that's what I'm going to pour onto. So I'm going to use bright pink, pink blast, light yellow, and purple for this one. And so what I'm going to do is just this plastic sheeting here, I'm going to put the string on it and then the paint on that. Now you can use anything for this. I just like to do it on the plastic sheeting because I like to peel up the leftover paint afterwards. That's called skins, and then you use that for collaging, jewelry, magnets, all kinds of things. So that's how I like to use this plastic sheeting. So I've just laid out my yarn here, and I'm just going along and putting a little bit of each color, kind of a little bit of purple each little segment, and then I'm going to put a little bit of each of the pinks and a little bit of yellow. And so you really don't need too much paint. Then any paint that's left over here, you can always use for a future project. Once it's dry, you can use those paint skins to do something with. And so, all right, once you've gotten your yarn pretty nice and soaked with paint, always make sure you leave a little section to kind of hold on to as well. And a good thing to use here to put the yarn on and the paint on is I like to also put a canvas here on the side. Just leave the plastic on the canvas and use that as the surface to put your yarn and your paint on. Same thing as I'm using the plastic sheeting. You can just use a canvas that still has the plastic wrap on it. So all right, made sure all the yarn is nice and saturated. Then you pick it up. You might need to use both hands. You just layer that across the canvas back and forth, and then pull it very parallel with the canvas. You're not really lifting very much. You're just pulling it straight down the end, nice and steady, nice and parallel with the canvas. And so also each time I pull the string through, afterwards I'm kind of squeezing off all the excess paint there on the edge. I squeeze off all the excess just because kind of get some muddying of colors if you don't. So you just kind of squeeze off the excess. Then you dip your yarn in again. And so you can go just real simple and just do like 1 string pull down the middle and be done. Or I'm adding I added a little bit off to the one side. Now I'm adding a little bit more off to the other side. And at any point you can decide, you're done. But and then you can always just keep going until you really like it. You can at this point also switch up colors and start string pulling some other colors through. That's a great idea as well. Now, my paints are mixed with Floetrol. Now, Floetrol does kind of help with some cells developing, even if you don't have any silicone. None of these paints today have silicone. My base doesn't have silicone. My colors I'm dipping the yarn into does not have silicone. We are not using silicone today. But even though we're not using silicone today, once we get a close-up shot here, you can really see there's these little tiny kind of itty-bitty lacing kind of cell action going on. And that's just simply Floetrol will do that. And so here is a close-up, and I'm really liking just kind of the subtle, just kind of pastel look to this one. And so that is just a simple, real basic beginner string pull technique. And you can do it with any colors, with any color base. You can do it in any direction. This is just how I like to do it, and an example of a nice beginner string pull. And so next we are going to do a feather. And so this is again on a 10 by 10 inch canvas. And so we are going to use a white base, and they're all same consistency. We're going to use for our feather burgundy, gray, coral, and light yellow. And these are all in episode 1 with the supplies. We're all using 24-piece Craft Smart. So I like to, on these square canvases, go diagonal with my feather. You can go any direction. You can do a few smaller feathers, any way you would like to do it. So I make sure that I first have enough yarn that'll go all the way across the canvas diagonal. Then I'm doing the same as I did with the feather and laying down a little bit of paint of each of the colors along the string. And so we're just laying down a little bit of each of the colors, and go ahead and make sure that you still have enough to hold on to as well of the ends of the string. And then you're going to do just similar as you did with the feather. Lay it down real carefully on the surface. And we do have a wet base. The white is still wet here on the base paint. And so it's all the same consistency of paint. And now once we have all the string laid down like we would like, it's all saturated with each of the colors, then you're going to grab that up just like you grabbed it up for the flower. I like to go at a diagonal, so I kind of go a curving kind of diagonal across the canvas. Then I'm going to grab it at one end and very carefully pull this up. So for the flower, you're going very parallel to the canvas. For this, you're lifting it up off and you're pulling it across kind of at a 45-degree angle, not quite parallel with the canvas, but lifting up slightly from the canvas and pulling out. Now you can pull more out further, and you're just going to get a wider feather. You can lift your string up even a higher angle, and you're going to get a much thinner feather. So then you're going to go ahead, once you get your one side of your feather, you're going to dip that. I go ahead and squeeze off all the excess paint, dip it back into our colors, and then pull the other side just the same as you pulled the first side. And when I do dip the string in for the second time, I do try to be careful and kind of line up the colors to where they're going to be kind of together, each side of the feather. So now I take the darkest color, which is our burgundy. I dip just the tip of the string in the burgundy, and I pull that down through the center of the feather, and that kind of creates kind of that heavier piece of the feather down through the middle. And so, all right, here's a close-up. And so that is just kind of our basic string pull technique, and you can do all kinds of different variations of a string pull technique in all different colors, in all different shapes and everything. So please let me know if you have any questions. And next, episode 8 will all be about flowers. I'm going to do several different techniques to create flowers. So stay tuned next couple days for episode 8, and it's all going to be about paint poured flowers. Not the bloom technique with all the special ingredients for the bloom technique, but different paint pour techniques that create flowers. So all right, thank you so much for watching, and you have a wonderful day.